On December 18th, 2025, new details emerged in the ongoing court battle between HYBE and former ADOR CEO Min Hee-jin. What was revealed? Well, first of all, it was revealed that while serving as ADOR CEO, Min Hee-jin authorized monthly payments of about 33 million Korean won to BANA, BANA, which is a music label run by her ex-boyfriend, Kim Ki-hyun. He was her boyfriend at the time, who allegedly produced New Jeans songs, although it's debatable what she meant by producing here. Now, HYBE also disclosed that Min Hee-jin promised to share part of her 25.6 billion Korean won put option payout with Kim Ki-hyun. It was also revealed that a close associate, I think it was VP Lee Sang-woo, continued accessing HYBE's internal financial data even after transferring to ADOR. So in this video, we're going to walk through what was revealed in court, what Min Hee-jin herself admitted under questioning, and why these details are raising serious red flags about decision making and accountability and so on, and corporate boundaries and so on, okay? Based on the Korean articles that came out today. Let's start here. The title is Min Hee-jin accused of granting excessive privileges to ex-boyfriend. 30 million Korean won a month even without working. Twice New Jeans' total settlements. Allegations have emerged that former ADOR CEO Min Hee-jin granted excessive preferential treatment to her ex-boyfriend. The claim is that Min Hee-jin entered into contracts highly favorable to him, the CEO of BANA, who was both her romantic partner at the time and the producer responsible for New Jeans' music. During a hearing held on December 18th at the Seoul Central District Court Civil Division 31st, which addressed HYBE's lawsuit to terminate its shareholder agreement with Min Hee-jin, as well as Min Hee-jin's put option claim, HYBE raised suspicions that Min Hee-jin had provided unjustified benefits to her former partner, meaning her ex-boyfriend. HYBE argued that because Min Hee-jin and Kim Ki-hyun were in a romantic relationship, Min Hee-jin may have unilaterally signed contracts that were excessively favorable to him. During witness questioning, HYBE presented a service contract related to work for Team N, referring to New Jeans, the project, the debut project for New Jeans, Team N. According to the contract, ADOR paid BANA 33 million Korean won per month, in addition to extra personnel cost paid directly to Kim and others. The contract also stipulated an additional incentive equal to, check this out, 5% of total album sales revenue in the year of release. Under these terms, BANA reportedly received service fees in 2022, amounting to roughly twice the total settlement paid to all New Jeans members combined. HYBE argued that despite ADOR recording operating losses in 2022, the service agreement resulted in BANA receiving more money than New Jeans themselves. HYBE's legal representative pointed to internal emails sent by ADOR's vice president to Kim Ki-hyun, stating that Min Hee-jin had entered into an unprecedented and highly unusual contract with BANA. According to the email, Kim's designated annual salary exceeded Min Hee-jin's own salary, ranked at the very top level within the entertainment industry, and included a 5% album revenue incentive, described as the highest level within HYBE. HYBE further argued that the contract appeared to have been executed without board approval. It was also revealed that Min Hee-jin had written a pledge promising to share a portion of the proceeds she expected to receive from exercising her put option under the shareholder agreement with Kim. In addition, the contract with BANA was later revised in a manner that further benefited Kim Ki-hyun. While the original agreement allocated 5% of album release year revenue to BANA, the revised contract provided Kim personally with 3% of cumulative album revenue, including past releases. As a result of this revision, Kim Ki-hyun's annual incentive reportedly increased from approximately 400 million to 1 billion Korean won. HYBE argued that under the revised terms, ADOR would be required to pay Kim Ki-hyun substantial incentives even if BANA performed no work at all. In response, Min Hee-jin acknowledged, by the way, during this hearing, Min Hee-jin personally attended the hearing again in person. And these are the photos taken after the hearing was over. And by the way, I will also talk about BANA and what's so fascinating about the backstory, because I have already covered this connection, weird and fascinating connection between BANA and NewJeans and Min Hee-jin in the past. Okay, but for now, back to the regular program. The article says, in response, Min Hee-jin acknowledged both her past romantic relationship with Kim Ki-hyun and the contract terms, but denied that the arrangement constituted preferential treatment. She argued that the contract was based on Kim Ki-hyun's abilities. Ooh, that kind of sounds like what she said to defend Shin Woo-seok of Dolphin Kidnappers at one of the hearings as a witness recently. Anyways, that's what she said. She argued that the contract was based on Kim Ki-hyun's abilities, not their personal relationship. Min Hee-jin stated that Kim Ki-hyun was highly capable and that she believed he could, quote-unquote, change the world. 세상을 바꿀 수 있을 것이라 생각했다. Change the world. Adding that the compensation was not excessive by industry standards. She further said that providing appropriate incentives was necessary to motivate and retain top talent. When questioned about whether the BANA contract had received board of directors approval, which would have been required, Min Hee-jin initially claimed that it had. However, after further questioning by HYBE lawyers, she revised her statement, saying that she believed HYBE's former CEO, Park Ji-won, had approved it. She explained that discussions had proceeded on the assumption of a verbal agreement with the former HYBE CEO. When pressed again on whether there had been a formal board resolution, Min Hee-jin responded that she did not remember. Once again, she did not remember. Min Hee-jin also claimed that her decision to share part of the put option proceeds with Kim Ki-hyun had nothing to do with their romantic relationship, stating that she simply wanted to fairly compensate a capable producer. It was further revealed that an email sent externally that included screenshots of KakaoTalk conversations involving a shaman had been addressed to Kim Ki-hyun. Min Hee-jin stated that she was unaware of this and claimed she had not personally sent the email. Well, the last bit that we just read was already known last year. There was actually an article about it published by Top Daily. Min Hee-jin, ADOR CEO, the tons of screenshots, KakaoTalk conversation screenshots. The receiver was BANA, and I have talked about it in in these videos with these thumbnails. Now, so that was an article, but let me read you one more paragraph after this one. It says, additional suspicions. So this one is from another article. Additional suspicions regarding BANA were also raised. Rumors had circulated, and articles had been published suggesting that NewJeans could sign an exclusive contract with BANA before resolving their contractual disputes with ADOR. So yeah, there were articles about it. When was it? Last year? Actually, no, this year. In the beginning of this year, in February. Now, what did Min Hee-jin say about this? In response, Min Hee-jin denied having any separate contact with BANA regarding New-Jeans contracts and argued that HYBE was attempting to frame her using selective excerpts from private text messages. HYBE also revealed that Min Hee-jin had promised to share part of her, that one we just read. So even though Min Hee-jin denied, how can we believe her when she was the one who denied having a conversation with the director of a Kosdaq listed company, Park Jung-gyu, and this infuriated him. The fact that she denied meeting him as a potential investor at all, because that caused his company shares tank. Well, anyways, but she denied. Now, so here's a summary of what we just read about. So HYBE alleged that Min Hee-jin gave preferential and excessive preferential treatment to her former boyfriend, Kim Ki-hyun, who was the CEO of music label BANA and producer for New Jeans. And interestingly, should I talk about this now? I made videos like these two. ADOR's name was already there: New Jeans, MHA, and BANA. New Jeans' response to BANA rumors: denial or damage control. So yeah, there was an article about how there are rumors that New Jeans has already made a contract with BANA. Although at the time, the New Jeans camp strongly denied it and said that they're going to take legal actions against whoever is spreading that rumor. Now, the thing is, actually, I will talk about these after reading one more article, because the CEO of BANA, well, in fact, in one of the music videos released by one of the artists within the label, BANA, if you watch their music video, there's the name, All Doors, One Room, ADOR, included in that video. What does it mean? That guy, or BANA, or the CEO, Kim Ki-hyun, had copyrights, the trademarks for the name ADOR, and Min Hee-jin got the name from him. In fact, she bought the trademark from him. And we're going to learn about that pretty soon. But before we move on, let's briefly go through what we just learned. Okay? So, yes, ADOR paid BANA about 33 million Korean won per month, plus additional personal costs, and agreed to incentives tied to album revenue. So at this point, she was excessively paying as a CEO, Dolphin Kidnappers, where Shin Woo-seok is the CEO, and BANA, where her ex-boyfriend was the CEO. I know there are some people, a lot of people actually, saying that there's a fishy potential relationship between Shin Woo-seok and Min Hee-jin. And there are some repeated patterns in terms of how she's describing these men. I'm not going to comment on that. Who knows? If I remember correctly, Shin Woo-seok is married though. Shin Woo-seok 결혼. Is he? 돌고래 요괴단 신우석 기혼. Well, I don't care. Right? But let's go back. That's not really important at this point. Although it could be a juicy topic for some of you, but I could hardly care. Sorry. Now, in 2022, BANA reportedly received service fees worth about twice the total settlements paid to all New Jeans members, despite ADOR recording operating losses. And the contract was later revised in the CEO's favor, Kim Ki-hyun, which increased his personal incentive payout significantly. Now, HYBE claimed the deal was made without proper board approval, which of course raises governance concerns. And Min Hee-jin initially said that, no, I got the board approval, but later changed her statement. Said that she thought HYBE's former CEO, Park Ji-won, got the approval. And Min Hee-jin admitted to the romantic relationship, and the contract terms, but denied favoritism, arguing the compensation reflected Kim Ki-hyun's ability, which is exactly kind of the same how she described. Yeah, there we go. Wow, the title. 신우석 감독은 스타니까 민희진 돌고 특혜 부인. That's almost like the same title as, the title of the article that we just read. Min Hee-jin called 신우석 a star and denied preferential treatments. Min Hee-jin also acknowledged promised to share part of her 25.6 billion Korean won put option proceeds with Kim, calling it a personal decision. Okay? Now, these screenshots we can go through now before we move on. Or shall we move on? Okay. Actually, let's go through one more article, then we will come back to screenshots of these conversations, because within these screenshots, we can see the names. BANA, the label that we just talked about, and also Kim Sung-soo of Kakao Entertainment, the former president of Kakao Entertainment, and HYBE lawyers questioned her about him as well during today's hearing. Pretty exciting, right? So let's move on to this article, and we'll talk about BANA at the end of this video. Okay? The title is former ADOR CEO Min Hee-jin spoke in court about. Actually, is this the right one? Yeah, it's the right one. Okay. On December 18th, I'm gonna skip this part because we just read about. On this day, the court concluded Min Hee-jin's third in-court examination as a party to the case. Questioning by the plaintiff side began first. So, just a word of explanation. This article also repeats some of the stuff that we have already read about, but this particular article includes more details in terms of what the lawyers asked and how she responded. And spoiler alert, she also talked about Bang Si-hyuk and even P-Dog, BTS producer P-Dog, when she was describing how such amount is industry standard. Yeah, dragging in big hit personnel once again. All right, let's go through this. Questioning by the plaintiff side began first. HYBE's legal counsel asked Min Hee-jin whether she has seen articles claiming that NJZ joined forces with BANA. NJZ, BANA와 손잡았다. To which, this is the article, to which Min Hee-jin responded that she understood the outlet that published the exclusive report to be widely known as pro-HYBE, and therefore, she was aware. This article was published by 10 Asia on February 14, 2005, and it was an exclusive article by them. And the HYBE lawyers basically asked her whether she was aware of that article. The plaintiff, HYBE, then followed up by asking whether BANA was a label that had asked a shaman about acquiring shares. Min Hee-jin replied that the question itself was incorrect and that the proper answer should be no. This is a really interesting way to answer. 질문이 잘못돼서 아니요라고 대답해야 된다. It's almost as if she's like outside her body and answering on behalf of her second self, almost. Min Hee-jin replied that the question itself was incorrect and the proper answer should be no, or I'm supposed to answer no. Well, let's go back. So this is where we can go back to this Kakao conversation, okay? And I have already translated in English last year. Not this one, this one. April 3rd, 2021, conversation between the shaman and MHJ. I'll remain as a freelancer, something similar to someone's idea, staying affiliated with Big Hit while also keeping a foot in BANA as a freelancer. So I will use Bang Seok's money for mine, meaning ADOR, and use Kakao's money for BANA. And the shaman says, yes, go stir things up. Min Hee-jin said, for that to happen, I will need to have some shares in BANA, right? Should I buy some shares in BANA? And the shaman says, I understand buying shares, but that's not how it's written. Now, what is it supposed to even mean? I don't know. It's kind of spooky every time I read the shaman messages. But she said that, or in fact, it's known that the shaman, even though a lot of people thought that the shaman was female, is actually male. But yeah, so he said, but that's not how it's written. Min Hee-jin responded, oh, so it means I don't need to buy them, meaning buy the shares of BANA? The shaman says, seems like it. It says, or it is said, that they would set up a company for you. 둘 다. Who are they? Probably referring to both Big Hit or Kakao or Bang Seok and Kim Sung-soo. And do you have one more Kakao? No, that was it. So that's what the HYBE lawyers asked her about. Is this the same BANA that you were referring to while having a conversation with the shaman in terms of acquiring their shares? But Min Hee-jin, how did she respond? The question itself is incorrect, and the proper answer should be no. Continuing, the HYBE lawyers plaintiff asked whether Min Hee-jin had considered using BANA to bypass non-compete restrictions, citing KakaoTalk messages in which Min Hee-jin allegedly said that if she created a label under HYBE, there would be nothing left to do with Kakao Entertainment's Kim Sung-soo. 레이블을 만들게 되면 카카오 엔터스 김성수와 할 게 없다는 취지로 말씀하시고 무속인이 이 중에서라고 하면서 바나를 언급한다. So that was a question. And Min Hee-jin, wait, let me read that one more time because I think there's another, like a conversation segment that they were talking about. Because here, yeah, maybe the part that the lawyers are talking about happened either before or after the screenshots. So let me read that part one more time. The plaintiff asked whether Min Hee-jin had considered using BANA to bypass non-compete restrictions, citing KakaoTalk messages in which Min Hee-jin allegedly said that if she created a label under HYBE, there would be nothing left to do with Kakao Entertainment's Kim Sung-soo, and that the shaman suggested choosing between the two while mentioning BANA. To that, Min Hee-jin firmly denied this, saying the messages had nothing to do with BANA. She explained that the messages dated back to April 2021. Okay, she remembers that. Before the shareholders' agreement existed, before any business relationship with BANA, and at a time when she did not own any stake in BANA. Okay, does that even matter? By the way, Kakao Enter Kim Sung-soo. This is the person, and we have already talked about this man a couple or a few times on my channel. Because, yeah, Min Hee-jin has mentioned him by name in the KakaoTalk conversations. Now, so that's what she said. And moving on, Min Hee-jin elaborated that Kim Sung-soo and Bang Seok were mentioned because she wanted BANA, which is a music label, to be properly developed or nurtured. Okay, with someone else's money, I guess. She said she personally introduced BANA to Bang Seok, and that HYBE's A&R team even met with BANA before eventually dropping the collaboration. At the same time, Kim Sung-soo was contacting her in an attempt to recruit her, leading her to briefly consider whether BANA could work under Kakao instead. She argued that attaching meaning retroactively to those conversations was misleading, adding that it felt like excessive fixation on shaman-related interpretation. As an analogy, Min Hee-jin said it would be like claiming that if Bang Seok once asked her to undermine a girl group and that group later encountered problems, then Bang Seok must have conspired against them years earlier. She said that kind of reasoning felt unfair and forced. So she here is referring to the Kakao conversation between herself and Bang Seok that she revealed publicly during her press conference, the first one. And if I remember correctly, Bang Seok probably jokingly said, "에스파 밟으실 수 있으시죠?" Like literally roughly translated as, you can step on aespa, right? But meaning you can outperform aespa, right? With the girl group that you're about to launch. So Min Hee-jin was saying that you guys being obsessed with my conversation with the shaman is like, you know what I mean. You know what she's going for. Now, speaking of which, let's briefly go back to BANA matters, because like I said in these videos from the past. So here she said, what did she say? Something about her playing around with the idea of whether BANA could work under Kakao instead. The thing is, SM Entertainment has invested in BANA before. In fact, Kim Ki-hyun, the CEO of BANA, has worked at SM before. Maybe it was at SM that these two got to know each other. There's a high chance that might be the case, but who knows? But Kim Ki-hyun, his background was SM Entertainment. Plus, here's an interview article in English. This is a screenshot from my own video, so I forgot where the article is from, but it was an interview with the SM Entertainment CEO. SM Entertainment CEO. Not this guy. Starting with Lee Sung-soo. I think this is it. Lee Sung-soo. Yep, this man. He's actually a cousin of Lee Soo-man, the founder of SM, right? And yeah, there was a coup, but overthrowing his own uncle. Anyways, so according to this article, Lee said, there's a company. So yes, we have different sub-labels and are investing a lot. There's one label that we launched with the sub-label Mystic, blah, blah, blah. We also acquired a hip-hop label called Million Market, which represents artists like Suran and others. There's a company that we have invested in called Beast and Natives Alike, or BANA. And they have a few different artists like the rapper Essence and duo called XXS. SM has invested in the company behind XXS. Their songs are quite vocal against the established state of music in South Korea, the interviewer asked. Lee answered, I love them. Actually, the founder of their company, BANA, his name is Kim Ki-hyun, and he was one of my favorite A&R staff. One day, he came to me and said he wanted to quit to make his own hip-hop label before he turned 30 years old. So he founded it, and we invested. So there we go. But according to the official documents, they have sold the entire stake in BANA in, when was it? 2021-ish? I need to go back to this video, but it's either 2020 or 2021. But yeah, they have invested in the label before, but sold them. Ironically, SM Entertainment themselves got acquired by Kakao Entertainment Why am I talking about this? I don't know. Her statements, Min Hee-jin's statements, or was it Min Hee-jin's statements or was HYBE's statements, like that she has considered about the possibility of having BANA working under Kakao Entertainment. That reminded me of that interview and those facts. It's also interesting that she personally introduced BANA to Pang Xiao, and that HYBE's A&R team even met with him. But eventually the collaboration dropped. And Kim Sung-soo was contacting her in an attempt to recruit her and leading her to briefly consider whether BANA could work under Kakao instead. All right, now let's move on. HYBE lawyers then asked whether BANA CEO Kim Ki-hyun was her former boyfriend. And Min Hee-jin answered, yes. I was kind of surprised by this because Min Hee-jin is known for saying, I don't remember, or just simply denying everything. But here, it was a simple yes, at least according to this article. So, interesting. The plaintiff continued by asking whether Min Hee-jin had signed a written pledge stating that she would give Kim Ki-hyun a portion of the money she would receive from exercising her put option against HYBE. A written pledge. Now, Min Hee-jin confirmed this, saying it was something she chose to do voluntarily. So she confirmed again. She explained that Kim Ki-hyun was not her current partner, but a highly capable individual who co-produced New Jeans songs with her. Because she could not grant him stock options using company funds, she decided that she was willing to receive less herself and instead share part of her own proceeds. She insisted that there was nothing unusual about this, noting that her messages showed she negotiated firmly with Kim Ki-hyun in her role as ADOR CEO. She added that their past romantic relationship was irrelevant and that she even sought advice from former HYBE CEO Park Ji-won on whether such compensation would be appropriate. Wow, she's dragging the guy, Park Ji-won, multiple times during these hearings. The plaintiff, HYBE lawyers, then asked whether BANA has served as ADOR's exclusive A&R service provider from ADOR's founding to the present, and whether Kim Ki-hyun founded BANA, and whether ADOR acquired the ADOR trademark from Kim Ki-hyun in 2021. Min Hee-jin acknowledged that all of these points were correct. All right, so now it might be a good time to briefly go back to here. Like I said, Kim Si-myeon was part of the XXX hip hop duo that this English article mentioned. His music video is called Budding on the Glass, a official music video from 2020, November 29th. If you watch it, and it's super brief, 0.005 seconds, there's this phrase, all doors, one room, out of nowhere. And BANA or Kim Ki-hyun had trademarked this name. In fact, if we go back to this Kakao Talk conversation between the shaman and Min Hee-jin on June 11th or June 12th, 2021, Min Hee-jin asked the shaman, Jiyoungnim 0814, that was the shaman's code name or something. She provided these options, two options. One, all joy. Two, ADOR. Which one is better, or which one do you like? And the shaman answers number two. Min Hee-jin asks, so you don't like all joy? And the shaman says, whatever you prefer. I personally do not like joy. Min Hee-jin asks, why? She says, I have a bad memory about it. Once again, it's kind of spooky whenever I see the shaman's messages. But it seems like these two options were all trademarked by BANA. And here's a record All Joy, for example, was trademarked by Kim Ki-hyun, the CEO of BANA, back in 2020, August 14th, 2020. So the chances are she was choosing between these two, trademarked names, names trademarked by Kim Ki-hyun, and then ultimately chose ADOR. Why? Because the shaman liked it. And the lawyers asked her about it, that whether she or ADOR acquired the name ADOR trademark from Kim Ki-hyun in 2021, and Min Hee-jin said yes. HYBE lawyers further stated that during negotiations over the trademark transfer, the initial transfer amount was set at 17 million Korean won, but later communications with ADOR's then vice president referred to a total transfer price of 100 million won, noting messages that said internal coordination had been difficult, but that the deal had ultimately been finalized according to Min Hee-jin's proposed conditions. Min Hee-jin confirmed this and explained that 17 million was only a partial payment, while the total 100 million included significantly better terms than those offered to other internal partners. She said this amount covered not only the trademark itself, but also logo usage and the involvement of the designer, and that she could demonstrate the total price was reasonable when compared to design service fees paid to other companies outside of HYBE. The plaintiff side continued by asking, after ADOR was established in 2021, you entered into 2 A&R service contracts with BANA for the Team N, meaning New Jeans. Under those contracts, ADOR paid BANA approximately 33 million Korean won per month in service fees, paid additional personnel costs for Kim Ki-hyun and others, and also agreed to provide an incentive equal to 5% of total revenue in the year of each album's release. Is that correct? Min Hee-jin answered, yes. The plaintiff then asked, it appears there were disagreements during the contracting process. In a December 2022 email, this was described as a major contract requiring board approval. Yet, there are no board meeting minutes, meaning records. Did this go through the board or did it not? Min Hee-jin replied, I assume it was discussed, adding, I thought Park Ji-won had approved it. When the court pressed her further, Min Hee-jin said, I don't remember, but there's a reason I believe it passed. When I said I was creating a label, Park Ji-won asked me, what if the ADOR board opposes it? And I replied, this is something I should decide myself. We had that conversation. On the premise, we agreed to bring 2 people onto the board at the time. That's why I believe it went through the board. Bang Si-hyuk knows this as well. Okay, so under same breath, she's dragging Park Ji-won and Bang Si-hyuk at the same time. The plaintiff then asked whether she had emphasized granting BANA exceptionally generous contract terms. Min Hee-jin responded that BANA did not originally want to work on idol projects, but she needed their music and believed New Jeans would succeed. By the way, I remember, again, we're talking about this rapper, Kim Ki-hyun, part of XXX. He's known for having written lyrics and rap verses for Red Velvet of SM Entertainment, which is a girl group that Min Hee-jin was involved with. So I mean, one could say that maybe BANA did not want to work on idol projects, but the artists and producers within the label are known for having worked with SM Entertainment artists before. Red Velvet. What is the song? Dum Dum. Dum Dum Writers. Can I type this like this? Dum 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 Dum. Dum 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 Dum. That one. Lyricist. I think it's Kim Do-yeon. Kim Shim. Yeah. Who wrote Dum Dum? Yep, there you go. Genius. Yep, Kim Shim. That's the artist within BANA. So we need to take what she said here with a grain of salt. When she said, what did she say? Sorry. Yeah, Min Hee-jin responded that BANA did not originally want to work on idol projects. Well, they kind of did, and they had been doing that. When did Red Velvet debut? Dum Dum, does it show? 2015. And if I remember correctly, okay, you know what? But anyways, Kim Shim-ya, the artist within BANA, wrote the rap verse for Irene and Joy. How do I know this? Because I listen to all kinds of K-pop, and I listen to Red Velvet as well. All right, so back to the article. And then she said, BANA did not originally want to work on idol projects, but she needed their music and believed New Jeans would succeed. She said she considered the members exceptional and therefore offered favorable terms. She described it as a give-and-take arrangement, adding that she cared deeply about compensation for contributors. She stated that not only Kim Ki-hyun, but also ADOR employees were well compensated. From an industry-wide perspective, she argued the terms were not unusually high, noting that other producers, such as P-Dog, earned more than BANA. Wow. So she is dragging in P-Dog, the producer of BTS, right here. She explained that BANA was an external service provider and that Kim Ki-hyun, not being a songwriter, could not receive copyright royalties, which placed him in a compensation blind spot. Okay? She said there was no established system to properly compensate people like him, so she proposed what she believed to be a reasonable level of pay for the work performed. She added that although all the songs were prepared, Kim Ki-hyun was still weighing whether to work with them, which she said indicated the relationship was not based on personal closeness. Okay, interesting. But we all know that the debut songs, namely Attention and Hype Boy, were already prepared by Source Music, right? We need to keep that in mind while listening to her speak about how she and Kim Ki-hyun have prepared, songs for New Jeans. Okay, but anyways, that's what she said. And then she said Kim Ki-hyun wanted appropriate compensation, while she needed the music and believed it could change the industry. She also believed that his music would be needed consistently beyond just one album. The plaintiff then asked, "You later entered into a second A&R service contract with BANA. In the first contract, BANA received 5% of total revenue, but in the second contract, the structure was changed so that Kim Ki-hyun personally received a percentage calculated cumulatively across past album releases. As a result, the annual incentive increased from approximately 400 million to 1 billion at the time of the renewed contract. Is that correct?" Min Hee-jin acknowledged all of this. The article says, Min Hee-jin stated that she did not consider 1 billion Korean won to be an excessive amount. She said that, given New Jeans' extraordinary success, contributors who played a role in that success should be compensated even more going forward. She added that freelancers in the K-pop industry who are not company employees often earn much larger sums, sometimes in the hundreds of billions of won. She said that in her view, Kim Ki-hyun was also an artist, just as stylists are artists, and that each individual should be treated as such. Oh, I wonder why she mentions a stylist here. Maybe because we have learned recently that ADOR stylists pocketed money illegally, right? And that was caught by the tax office department pretty recently this year. Maybe that's why. Stylists are artists, and Kim Ki-hyun is an artist, and that each individual should be treated as such, she said. She said Kim Ki-hyun was effectively part of New Jeans, and that artists should be compensated differently depending on their success and impact. She emphasized that she believed it was fair and proper to motivate talented people with consumerate rewards. The plaintiff then pointed out that under the second contract, ADOR would still be required to pay substantial incentives even if no music was released and BANA performed no work, and asked whether Min Hee-jin was aware of this. Min Hee-jin replied that such a situation would never occur, saying there was no premise under which BANA would do no work. The plaintiff further asked whether Min Hee-jin was aware that even after New Jeans declared contract termination and departed, BANA continued to receive tens of million Korean won per month in service fees. Oh my goodness, this is angering me as a shareholder. They've been receiving tens of million won per month in service fees? The article says, Min Hee-jin responded by asking whether that occurred after her dismissal. The plaintiff replied that the payments were made because of contracts Min Hee-jin herself had signed. Okay, so she was trying to dodge that responsibility. I mean, that happened after I was dismissed by HYBE, right? But the lawyers responded, yo, this is because the contract that you signed with Kim Ki-hyun. Finally, HYBE lawyers asked whether Min Hee-jin and Kim Ki-hyun were in a romantic relationship at the time of the first service contract. Min Hee-jin answered no, stating that they had broken up long before, prior to the start of New Jeans. Okay. She said that despite the breakup, they agreed to maintain professional boundaries and continue working together. She added that BANA likely received many other offers but rejected them all to work exclusively with New Jeans, and that she believed such commitment deserved proper compensation. So, there we go. Why did I write 256 billion put option? It should be 25.6 billion. But here's a summary. So, what do you think? I mean, what stands out most is not simply the existence of a prior romantic relationship, but how, I mean, that's what a lot of articles have been written about. But what's more important is how consistently Min Hee-jin minimizes governance and accountability and conflict of interest concerns by reframing everything as artistic judgments. You know what I'm saying? Like her defense rests almost entirely on subjective belief that what Kim Ki-hyun was exceptional, just like how she described 돌고래 계단, 신호석 of Dolphiners a star, and that the numbers didn't feel big, that informal approvals were enough, and that success retroactively justified the terms. And if you think about it, this approach just simply sidesteps the core issue. Because a CEO, I mean, she was a CEO, and a CEO is not judged by whether collaborators are talented, but by whether decisions are made through proper process and transparency and fiduciary responsibility. But the testimony shows repeated reliance on memory gaps and assumptions of verbal approval and like post hoc rationalizations, especially when she was asked about board consent, right? Saying, I thought it passed, or I don't remember, is not a substitute for documented authorization, especially for contracts described internally as requiring board approval. And her justification for restructuring incentives for Kim Ki-hyun is also troubling. So, by shifting payments from a company level arrangement to direct personal compensation for Kim Ki-hyun and dramatically increasing the payout, she effectively concentrated risk and reward around a single individual with whom she had a personal history. That is, a romantic history. And the fact that payments could continue even without active work, and that BANA continued receiving fees after Nugent's departure, that further weakens her claim that compensation was strictly performance-based. And HYBE, knowing the significance of contract, cannot simply say that from now on the contract has been canceled, which is what Eugene basically said. That's how important a contract is. Once it is written, it's super hard to cancel it, abandon it. And most damaging is her admission that she planned to share her personal put option proceeds with Kim Ki-hyun. I mean, even if it's framed as generosity, this really blurs the line between corporate decision making and private loyalty. It really strengthens HYBE's argument that personal relationships influenced business structure at the time, regardless of whether she believed the outcome was fair. So, in the end, her testimony does not convincingly answer why extraordinary contracts were granted without clear governance safeguards, nor why so many decisions relied on informal understanding rather than formal approval. And the issue is not whether quote-unquote artists deserve to be paid well, but whether a CEO can unilaterally decide how far rules bend based on personal conviction. And on that point, her explanations raise more questions than they resolve. And I'm kind of sure that the judge would feel the same way. Now, so that was the whole story about her ex-boyfriend, Kim Ki-hyun, the CEO of BANA. Maybe there are more information that these articles didn't mention, but yeah. Now, before we wrap, I want to read you one more segment. Should I? It's kind of... Okay, one more segment about Lee Sang-woo, the VP. Because we will have another eventful day tomorrow. Min Hee-jin's close associate, Vice President Lee Sang-woo, accessed HYBE files without authorization after moving to ADOR. So this is from another article. Lee Sang-woo, a vice president widely known as Min Hee-jin's closest associate and the author of the so-called HYBE 7 Deadly Sins document, previously served as head of IR under HYBE's CFO organization. After receiving a recruitment offer from Min Hee-jin, he officially became vice president of ADOR on February 1st, 2024. It was later revealed that in April 2024, after the transfer, Lee Sang-woo accessed and downloaded large volumes of financial data related to HYBE and its subsidiary labels without authorization. HYBE presented records from April 2024 showing Lee Sang-woo's download activity and questioned Min Hee-jin directly during today's hearing, stating that although Lee Sang-woo had no authorization to access HYBE's internal work folders after February 1st, he nevertheless entered HYBE's financial directories and downloaded approximately 51 files. These included, check this out, material such as artist revenue by 8 regions, and Playtist closing balance statements. Playtist is the label for 17 and TWS. Yeah. And what else? Along with various financial and accounting documents related to other labels and artists under HYBE. HYBE asked Min Hee-jin whether she had received or been provided with any of these materials by Lee Sang-woo. Min Hee-jin responded that she had not, stating that she had never received such data and had no idea why Lee Sang-woo accessed it at the time. Beyond this, the article says, it was also revealed that even before Lee Sang-woo officially joined ADOR as vice president, he had already been providing Min Hee-jin with projected revenue and operating profit figures for other HYBE subsidiary labels at her request. And check this out. HYBE further disclosed KakaoTalk messages exchanged between Min Hee-jin and Lee Sang-woo on January 10th, 2024, before Lee Sang-woo's transfer to ADOR, along with access logs showing Lee Sang-woo entering HYBE's Google Drive during that conversation. According to the records, when Min Hee-jin asked, what are source meaning source music's projected results, Min Hee-jin sent her photos and shared the label's expected revenue and operating profit figures. And once again, as we all know, Source Music is a label for Le Sserafim, and Min Hee-jin dragged Le Sserafim into the conversation, into this whole matter last year during her press conference, and they're still doing that, right? And Source Music is having that legal battle with Min Hee-jin. And if I remember correctly, the next hearing is happening tomorrow. Well, basically today, since it's past midnight in Korea now. Now, at the conclusion of the testimony, and this is the end of this article that I'm reading. So this is what she said. At the conclusion of her testimony, Min Hee-jin made a personal statement. And let me have a quick sip of water before reading this, because as you can see, it's quite lengthy. So what did she say? She said she believed this type of corporate culture needed to change and insisted that the lawsuit was not about money. She explained that she chose to endure this difficult legal battle because she wanted to expose what she described as continued false accusations despite having done nothing wrong. She argued that the acquisition of her private KakaoTalk messages was improper and amounted to surveillance of a private individual, and criticized the media for widely circulating those messages. She claimed that while people under actual criminal investigation received minimal coverage, articles about her were published by the hundreds even when the content was trivial. Is she referring to like 방시혁? 기사 한두 개 나고 one or two articles about someone under actual criminal investigation, while about her there are 300, 400 articles written about her, even when the content was trivial. Min Hee-jin said this imbalance had been extremely painful for her, but hoped her case would lead to reform. She stated that she appeared in court to uncover why she was being treated this way and asked that her case be judged calmly and fairly. She added that anyone could be made to look like a bad person if only fragments of their messages were selectively shown. She questions whether these matters truly belonged in a shareholder agreement termination lawsuit and expressed hope that her case would contribute to the advancements of the industry. Wow. I mean, at this point, what would contribute to the advancement of the industry is her absence. I personally believe that at this point, the Korean government should prevent her from ever entering the industry again in the future. But that's what she said. Let me finish this. Min Hee-jin concluded by saying that HYBE should simply not engage in wrongdoing, arguing that reform and improvement are impossible in an environment where criticism is silenced, people are brought up with money, and accusations are weaponized. She emphasized that she had reached this point without misusing corporate credit cards, claiming this proved she had managed the company cleanly and delivered substantial results. She said she deliberately avoided unethical shortcuts and wanted to show how far one could succeed by creating good content through transparent and legitimate means. She expressed hope that her sincerity would be understood and that people would recognize why she had chosen to endure such a painful lawsuit publicly. Man. I mean, the gap between her claims of ignorance and the documented pattern of information, flow around her. Like, that's what undermines Min Hee-jin's defense most sharply. Because while she denies, first of all, what we just read about, while she denies receiving illegally accessed files after Isan was transferred to ADOR, the evidence shows that she had already been requesting and receiving confidential financial data from him while he was still at HYBE, right? And this makes her claim of complete detachment from his later actions difficult to accept. And her repeated framing of the issue as persecution or moral reform simply avoids the core governance question. Like, why was her closest associate repeatedly accessing internal financial data from an organization he no longer belonged to? And why had he been doing so at her request, even before officially moving to ADOR? And whether she personally opened the files is secondary to whether she benefited from or encouraged or normalized the practice of cross-label financial intelligence gathering. And her closing statement, that really blurs accountability in a totally different level, right? So by shifting the discussion toward media bias and emotional suffering and industry reform, she sidesteps the procedural seriousness of unauthorized access to confidential corporate data. And calling the acquisition of KakaoTalk messages surveillance does not address why those messages show, sketchy stuff, well, including active requests for internal financial information that was never hers to receive. And I think what she just said here, saying that using or KakaoTalk acquisition of KakaoTalk messages is surveillance, that might sound offensive to the court because the court has accepted those KakaoTalk messages as evidence, and she's still not accepting that fact. And the argument that she managed quote unquote cleanly because what? She did not misuse a corporate credit card, popka? That sets an extremely low bar for executive integrity. I mean, is that what is going on at SM Entertainment all the time where she worked previously? I don't know. Why is she talking about popka all of a sudden? Credit card, corporate credit card. I mean, clean governance is not defined by the absence of petty fraud, but by respecting boundaries and access controls and fiduciary duties. And the presence of documented logs and these messages suggest a pattern of behavior that contradicts her portrayal of herself as merely a misunderstood reformer. So I think what we just heard from these articles reinforces a recurring theme seen throughout this case. Min Hee-jin consistently reframes concrete compliance issues as philosophical disputes while minimizing her proximity to actions that raise serious red flags and serious legal and ethical concerns. So, yeah, as reports from today's hearings continue to come out, I might be following them closely and I will be following them closely and might make another video once the full picture becomes clear. I don't know, maybe like Dispatch will release a full-length article to talk about something that has not been revealed now. But for now, I want to hear from you. What stood out to you from what we heard about this hearing today? What was the most ridiculous part of the hearing? I don't know, maybe you don't agree with what HYBE lawyers said or what they questioned, or what you thought was ridiculous from her statements. By the way, these are the photos that the Korean media journalists have taken of Min Hee-jin leaving the court after the hearing was over. And I think she was kind of frustrated by the presence of journalists taking her photos. I think one of the article titles says that Min Hee-jin, once she found out that journalists were outside, she quickly turned back. And another article described how these people following her or walking with her are bunnies, New Jeans bunnies. Who knows? Maybe they were. But I heard that, this is an open hearing. So anybody who requests in advance can attend. And I heard that there were a lot of bunnies in attendance. Although I'm kind of at this point mad for them about them continuing to use the name bunnies. And I think the media should stop describing them as bunnies, because who are they supporting really? They're not supporting New Jeans. They are supporting Min Hee-jin. So at this point, someone should give them a nickname, the fandom name for Min Hee-jin specifically. I mean, there are some juicy names that people have created referring to Min Hee-jin supporters, but I'm not going to say it here. So, as always, feel free to drop comments, add your input, but let's stay positive, respectful, and classy. Thank you guys. Peace and love. Bye-bye.